All right, you're all set.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to get started here. We have two applicants this evening. We're going to start with the Station Overlook. We'll proceed with introductions from the DAT panel and the county, and then roll to the presentation team to walk through, followed by commentary. As you all know, this is not a meeting for public comment. Public comments have been shared by the county with the panelists prior to the meeting. So with that said, my name is Ethan Marchant. I am an architect and the chair of the panel. Kelly, I think you're next. Go through my
Kelly there you go, Ethan. Hi, I'm Kelly Hollenbeck. I'm the vice chair and also an architect.
And Fred.
Good evening, Fred Marino, and I'm an architect.
And Dan.
Dan Lovett, civil engineer.
And finally for tonight, Sharahar.
I'm Shayar Etamadi, planner, engineer.
And I guess Nick and Anthony, if you can introduce yourselves, and we'll turn it over then to the applicant.
Sure. Anthony Cataldo, Division Chief, Land Development, Planning and Zoning.
And Nicholas Haynes, Plan Reviewer, Division of Land Development, Department of Planning and Zoning.
Okay, so applicant team, take it away.
Okay. My name's Rob Vogel. I am the project engineer for this site. With me will be Chip Keener, who is the project architect for this project. We've been before the design advisory panel previously on this project for a market rate, I believe it's 260 units, plus or minus, and structured parking. That did not work out. We are here to present a 182 unit project, which is a mixed income project with surface parking. And just give me a moment and I will share screen for the presentation. Just a couple of things actually. The materials that were presented, we did get comments back from staff asking to add some perspectives that we did add, and you'll see that in the presentation. We also have an animation that we'd also like to share, so we'll work that in as well and try to keep it within our time limitations. Just give me a second here. Is that visible?
No.
No.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So again, this is Station Overlook. Second try. And let me, why is that not working? For those who weren't familiar with this project, this is the proposed site is was an SHA surplus site. It is located east of Carter Road, between Carter Road, Maryland Route 32, the Maryland Route 32 eastbound ramp off to Dorsey Run Road, Dorsey Run Road to the east, Junction Drive to the south, and fronting, the project really fronts on Carter Road, which is, in this view, is to the west. Could you confirm you're still seeing these?
Yes.
We can see that.
Okay, wonderful. I'm sorry. I'm used to doing it from the office and I'm doing it from home, so it's not as smooth. I apologize. So these are some just representative pictures. These are exactly the same as the last time we presented. Picture 1 is looking from Carter Road toward the intersection with Junction Drive. Picture 2 is at Dorsey Run Road and adjacent to the in the vicinity of the actually of the train station. The train station is south of the, in this view, is south of the site. We'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. Picture 3 is looking toward Carter Road as it intersects Junction Drive in this view. Picture 4 is looking to the other side from the subject site to the industrial side of the of Carter Road, which is zoned M2 and is used in accordance with the zoning more or less. Photo 5 is looking down Carter Road. Picture 6 looking toward more of the industrial areas. Here are those photos. Again, 4 and 6 looking to the other side of Carter Road. This is kind of a constraints map, if you would. Some limited steep slopes adjacent to Carter Road. We have a stream channel that really emanates from the stormwater management facility on the other side of Carter Road. That's really the source of most of that runoff. Some of it is from the site, but predominantly from the industrial runoff on the other side of the road. A little bit about that channel. It's not a pristine channel by any stretch. It's debatable whether it was really a stream channel or an ephemeral channel. State highway, this was state highway property, as I mentioned. There's a pipe south that runs into the state highway pond. State highway recently, I say in the past 6 months or so, maybe 6 months, 8 months, they came in and filled part of the stream area with riprap and reconstructed their inlet to go down to the pond. So they've more or less eliminated about the 100 feet from that inlet. This stream is being permitted. This disturbance is being permitted with the Maryland Department of the Environment, and they really have no issue with its removal. There's a small wetland on site you can see, and a couple of specimen trees that have been identified on the subject site. This is a kind of a grand pulled out view, 1,000 feet up of the proposed site. You can see the proposed apartment building occupying portion of the site in a T format. Stormwater management is exactly the same as it was on the original submission, actually. So they are above and adjacent to the state highway stormwater facilities and feed back down into those facilities. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the structured parking didn't work out, didn't pan out for this site, and this is at-grade parking for the apartment building. There's this access where my cursor is. If you can see that, there's an entrance on Carter Road side. Almost opposite of that, there's an entrance on the parking lot side. And I have a more detailed drawing. We'll show it in a little bit more detail. There is a secondary pedestrian access from that elongated parking area. We have a secondary access that to facilitate folks that would be coming from that parking. And we have a trash compactor access that will go to a pad, a trash pad on, and only taken out of the building and put back into the building after it's picked up on trash day. So again, you can see the surrounding roads: Dorsey Run Road, Junction Drive, Carter Road, and the Route 32 ramp. Couple of sections through the site. Section 1 is cut through through the T in the building, if you will, looking toward the west, and you can see Carter Road in that section to the left, the building, and then Dorsey Run Road down to the right. Section 2 is cut through the long length of the building. Again, you can see on the right side of that section, the apartment building, the proposed building, and then the left side is the extra story, because Mr. Keener will speak to the architecture, but on the low side, it is a 6-story, 5-story for the balance of the building on that. Section 3 is cut kind of diagonally through the building. You're seeing from right to left 32 ramps, the existing stormwater management pond. I faintly see the red line in there, which is the property line, and the apartment parking, and then the building itself, and then moving to the left, the sidewalk and Carter Road. Section 1, here's another cut kind of diagonal through the building. Not a whole lot different than some of the other sections. And then section 2 is just a section through the parking area. I should also mention, and as you look at this view of the site, this long red section will be the forest conservation for this project. The county has strict regulations now as far as providing 75% of forest conservation on site, and that piece is under contract from State Highway, and the purpose is for forest retention in that area. So that we're really not showing that here. Moving through here, these are some sections that we have cut through additional sections. So section 1, Carter Road to the left, you're seeing the Carter Road to the left and the building to the right. Section 2 and section 3 are basically the same thing. Just looking at Carter Road and the relationship of Carter Road to the building and the height of the building. A little bit more detail here. So off the lower, what would be the lower level, where there are 6 stories, there will be a patio, fire pit, seating area, and a walkway. So for this to be handicap accessible, we have an access to the building that comes off the lowest level and then wraps around the building. And that's how folks, if they're handicapped or not, an easy way to access that lower level amenity spaces down below. And then that will wrap back up, and as it comes back up to the parking lot and to the other side of the building, it will be coming up a story. So this is that that pathway adjacent to that side of the building is not handicap accessible, and hence the reason for the other access. You see the parking lot, again, the trash pad on trash day, the rollout container will have its own pathway out to a wider sidewalk, and that will make its way to the trash pad, which will be landscaped. Trash will be picked up. That trash container then will be brought back into the building. And again, you're seeing that access to out to the extended parking to the right on this on this view. The front of the building we will have steps to the entrance. We will also have a handicap ramp due to the elevation difference between front and rear on this project. I would also mention from an amenity perspective that forest conservation area will have a pathway through the forest conservation. In Howard County, we are permitted to have a pathway through there. So a pathway will be designed to avoid the trees, and it'll be an amenity for folks on that they could go out and walk that long length of pathway. To the left here, a conceptual plant list, pretty much native plantings that we would anticipate on this project. Just some representative landscaping. We would anticipate this type of interlocking block wall on that lower level access wrapping around that end of the building, something similar to that. Bioretention, typical bioretention plantings that we utilize on our projects. Some representative benches, fire pit seating, fire pit outdoor seating thing, pictures. We will have a small, I would call it a pet relief area, right? Or small dog park off the end of the parking lot where it heads into that forest conservation area. And Chip, I'm going to let you take over from here because we go to the perspective views, and then before we're done, I will run that animation.
Okay, so my name's Chip Keener with Studio K Architecture, and the program for the project is affordable multifamily housing. So we're in a neighborhood right next to a metro station, right across from the residences at Annapolis Junction. So it's a suburban environment. And what we were trying to do was tie in some of the vocabulary that's already there. Like the Annapolis Junction has some interesting materials and forms on it. So we were trying to play off of that using traditional materials, but modern designs. That's pretty typical for a multifamily building that's going to be serving millennials and Gen X. The topo, as Rob had pointed out, as you go south on Corridor Road toward Junction Drive, it drops pretty steeply. So that's why the majority of the building is a 5-story. It's going to be type 3B construction, but you're going to have that terrace level with the walkout patios and everything that just to accommodate that drop in grade. And that'll probably be a type 1A, some Hambro system or something like that, just to accommodate that 6-story structure in that area. So when you look at the exteriors, we're talking about brick masonry, veneer, fiber cement panel siding, and the vinyl in the background would be a premium board and batten, something with a vertical element to it. And that again, it's very similar to the materials that are across the street, like directly across the street on the residences in Annapolis Junction. So beyond that, he's already explained how the handicap accessibility is working. Inside the building, we're going to have a full gamut of amenity spaces. We're going to have fitness rooms, community rooms, cyber cafe, lounges, library, all of that typical amenity that you would want for a market rate building, even though this is affordable housing, financed by the state. And I think that's probably the extent of the architecture. Yeah,
so these are some perspectives that we generated actually off the animation, but these were at the suggestion of staff that we show what the different views would be from different perspectives. So perspective one is pretty much from the intersection of Junction Drive and Carter Road, looking toward the building where it is 6-story. Perspective two is there was a suggestion from staff to have a view from Junction kind of looking up through where the amenity area is, but that area is going to be pretty well buffered by existing and proposed landscaping, so really not getting much of a view there. View 3 is actually from the residences at Annapolis Junction, which is on Dorsey Run Road, existing building back there. So perspective 3 is really driven from that direction. 7, kind of an elevated view. I'm not sure that it helps a whole lot, but at least you're getting a look in toward our amenity area, which is again where it is a 6-story building, and this is that amenity area is at that lowest level. Perspective 8 is just looking from the end, actually from our entrance, looking through the parking lot toward the building. So that's from the west looking east. And perspective 9 is looking from the other side of Carter Road in toward the site. So you're if you were in that industrial property across the way. This is really just another view of the building. This is from the parking lot side of the building. Interior, and the narrative here speaks to what Mr. Keener was talking to. Just some elevation views of the building, C and D. The two ends, that would be the two ends of the building. And I am going to now try to, I'm going to stop share for a second. And I am going to try to bring up this animation. I hope it works. Are you seeing that?
Yep, go ahead, Rob.
Wonderful. So this is starting on the Route 32 ramp. We're kind of on the Route 32 ramp. We're heading to Dorsey Run Road. See the stormwater management ponds, the SHA ponds in the foreground. We've turned on Dorsey Run Road. We're looking toward the parking lot side of the building. There's the end of the T. We are at Junction Drive, looking toward the building. We're going to turn eventually. So now at the end, now we're turning up Carter Road, and we're looking at the long view of the building from Carter Road. Coming into view here will be the entrance. There's the entrance, the ramp down that I described for handicap accessibility. Pulling back into the industrial property a little bit, looking back toward the building. Wrapping around the west side, we're going to come, that would be now we're coming in the entrance to the parking lot, and we're looking at the building from the interior parking lot side. There's our entrance from the parking lot side, our parking bays in there. Now there's the grade I was describing going down to the rear elevation, which is the bottom of the 6-story building. And actually, I'm going to pull back there just a little bit. So that's our amenity area. Down below, there's the pathway. That would be the handicap accessible pathway from the door that you see there. And there is a retaining wall required for that access. Again, wrapping back around the corridor road side of the building from a further out perspective, back to our parking lot. There's our driveway in the foreground, and back to the Route 32 ramp. And that's the animation. I think it hopefully helps give perspective to everything. With that, we are complete and interested in hearing your thoughts and answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Rob and Chip. Nick, could you go through the county report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think Mr. Vogel did, and you know, did a fairly good job, you know, with Mr. Keener, you know, explaining what the new proposal is for this site. You know, as it was mentioned, this project was previously seen June last year, when they had the split building design. So they've revised their submission, you know, and come back in with the new, you know, new building, new articulation, you know, and new layout. As Mr. Vogel mentioned, it's sort of a leftover piece of property that was owned by SHA, but it is, you know, fronting on a major intersection, you know, immediately adjacent to Annapolis Junction, the MARC station, stuff being just essentially right across the street. Dual zone property, with TOD and M2, so their designs are, you know, reflecting the TOD oriented design style. Facade of the, you know, structure, they've added some articulation, you know, and essentially provided some updates based on the you know, panel's comments at the last meeting. You know, really update the building's character, you know, and really, I think, you know, give it some, took some design cues and stuff from the neighboring designs to help everything sort of tie in. But that all being said, the site has, you know, undergone some, you know, essentially major design and circulation changes. We no longer have the parking garage element, you know, on the what would be the eastern side of the property, and now everything's handled through surface parking, but as well as internal circulation with both vehiculars and pedestrians is vastly different from what they had with the previous design. So if any recommendations the panel could make in terms of orientation, layout, and configuration of the new design, does the new single you know, monolithic building design provide more opportunity and, you know, better design within the context of the Annapolis Junction, you know, area, given that we know sort of what the neighboring structures and layouts sort of are. Any recommendations on the circulation aspects, proposed amenity areas, screening would be greatly appreciated. Any recommendations towards their architecture, maybe things they haven't thought of that you know, they might want to enhance given its location, you know, and prominence on that you know, that intersection, you know, in its close locale. And then any recommendations towards screening? I mean, the fly through Mr. Vogel provided, I think it's a really good idea, or much better idea of exactly, you know, what the views and view sheds are going to be, you know, surrounding the property from the you know, the surrounding area, and essentially what those views are going to be. So any recommendations and enhancements the panel would like to suggest would be greatly appreciated.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Are there any of my colleagues on the panel who want to start off the discussion? All right. Anybody? I have a couple comments, but I'll lead off in this case. I think the set of renderings and the fly through were incredibly helpful, based on the submission that was sent through, previously. Understanding sort of the way you intend to articulate the facades, is much better, seen with that depth with the bay windows. I was concerned about the super long length of the front of the building. So seeing that depth and relief it is helpful. I'm concerned about the value engineering process this goes through it and what the moves that get made. I think there's a good precedent, at Annapolis Junction, should that happen, where they've sort of just massed the building into 3 or 4 chunks right through some slots. So as this goes through that pricing phase, I think there are some concerns with that. But what's been presented today, I think is really effective. I think the biggest missed opportunity here is the TOD aspect of the project, and creating connections to the Savage station. The location of the entry of the building, kind of centered in the building, doesn't really create bike and walking paths. That's one of the objectives of the guidelines for the TOD district. And I think there could be an opportunity to tie your amenity center, I believe that's in the lower piece, right? To have a bike room and entry there, so folks coming and going from the train station could enter through that and have a place to store bikes and easily get there, or shower on their way back, or whatever it may be. I think there's an opportunity to really lean into this particular site and its relationship to the train. So that's sort of my couple comments there.
Rob, do you mind pulling up the amenity plan again real quick? You're muted.
That's probably a good thing that I'm muted. Are you looking for that lower area? Is that the area
Yes,
you're looking
please.
for? Okay.
Yeah.
Just give me a second here.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, I definitely agree with Ethan. The architectural language on this, it reads really nicely. It ties into that adjacent building. I think the comments from last time definitely have been incorporated. I don't really have too much on the architecture. I think I agree with the TOD aspect of it. Where can we tie in? I also kind of, like, part of the reason I want to see this amenity plan again is there any way right now? It looks the only way to get to that space is either through around the edge of the building or coming down from the parking area. Is there any kind of more direct route there without knowing the interior of the facility, to try and get that amenity space a little bit more draw, and tie into the area?
Yeah, let me.
I know the grade's challenging, but
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So Ethan, and we were looking at that too. If we could enter at that lowest level, that terrace level, I agree. Like, it's closer to the metro station. That would be great. But the slope along corridor, it's really steep at that end of the building. So I'm not sure. We're using the building as part of the accessible route to drop that, whatever, 14 feet down. So I like the idea, like putting everything down at that corner would be great, but I'm not sure how to make that work and accessible for people just on the sidewalk. We have to go through the building to get from parking down there.
Okay, I can understand it. I guess just to clarify, the amenity center is, to Kelly's question, is connected through elevator and internal corridors as well. We're not
Yes.
asking people to go outside to get there. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that, my comment still would stand. Not necessarily the solution I might have presented, but how can you make this into
Yeah.
a TOD related building?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
and seeing the rendering, you can definitely see that slope along that I'm guessing that's Plan South without having a north arrow, that edge there. I can see where that is a challenge. It would be nice if there was some way to connect that into the building somehow, or is there a way for those patios to connect into it? I'm thinking of the rabbit trails that'll start getting formed by any of the residents in that area potentially. Just don't know if there's something in the architecture that could tie that in. And then my only other comment is it does feel like this building is really pushed up on Corridor Road, especially getting as tall as it is. Has there been any look at how that relief could also be not just in the plan orientation, but in that vertical orientation to give some relief to that tall cavernous building, especially what's the height at that amenity space entrance from the sidewalk to the top of that building? Approximately.
Chip, what do you think the building height from the lowest level to your roof?
It's about
Can you-
59 feet on the main body of the building, and then from that lowest terrace level, you'd add another 10 feet. So like 69 feet roughly
I
is
mean-
what's being proposed right now.
And that's the building, and then how much is that it looked like there was a little bit of a retaining wall there, and then the sidewalk. I mean, it's a really high monolith at that corner. How can we kind of, with the sidewalk and the slopes that you're working with, try and give some relief to that road? Just something to consider there. I do like how you are terracing the building. I don't think we do that enough in architecture, respond to the land with that. So I think that was a really smart move with those amenity spaces there. I know it'll be challenging using that buried part, but I like that you went that route to not just plateau up this building and fill that all up with fill.
Yeah, it makes it more interesting.
I think that's my main comment is, can we look at trying to relieve that corridor road, and then how can the amenity space get a little bit more connected to the building other than the one trail?
Yeah, we appreciate that. We can study that, sure.
I'm going to chime in here. The only comment I had was the one Kelly had. It seemed the rendering didn't bother me on the rendering as much as it does on the plan, the proximity of the building to Corridor Road. And not knowing the exact dimension, maybe it's fine. And you're pinched on the other side of the building too, so I don't know. The only thing I was thinking was, is there a way to crank that piece of the T, if you will, crank it one way or the other, so you could allow yourself to pull the building off of Corridor Road some, but I'm afraid you might lose a unit or two. I don't know. It's my only comment, though.
Yeah, this is Dan Lovett. Going back to that landscaping one that you had, and I think it's kind of just going what Kelly was saying was, got it. It's just that you have all these sidewalks going around the amenities and everything. And I know you have the retaining wall and that, of course, on the page on the northeast section, right? But I'm just wondering if we can go a trail on the back side of that wall to go all the way to the front, even though I know it's not going to be ADA, but I just got a feeling that would make a complete loop of all the pedestrian around the site. Would kind of be nice. Because I think a lot of people would go through there anyway, just because, but that was my recommendation. The other thing I wasn't sure on is, where was the handicap parking going to be exactly? And is that part of the parking lot
Yes.
going to be that 2% that you're going to need there? Is there going to be any issues? So I'd just like to see where those handicap places are going to be. Is that where you think you're going to put them?
Yeah, I think the handicap parking will be in very close proximity, if not just directly in front of what's labeled as
With the entrance, and you don't have any slope concerns or anything in that area, correct?
And I think you had an interesting thought there, Dan. I just want to make sure I understood what you're saying. So you're talking about coming off that pathway that we have coming from the kind of the front lower level access to our amenity area, kind of doubling back on that below the wall and heading out to Carter Road. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Got it.
And
Okay.
that,
Yep,
and that
yep,
way
yep,
it completes the loop without having to go through the building.
Nope, got it. And yep, would certainly consider and take a look at that.
Okay, that's all I have.
This is Shahryar. We have only one access to the site, correct?
That is
That's what
correct.
I see.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is the fire trucks and emergency vehicles can get to this corner where you have your amenities to the back of the building on the other side?
Yeah, so generally, Howard County Fire and Rescue wants to make sure that they, so in this case, they have access to the parking, obviously,
Yes,
full
correct.
access to the parking lot, and they have full access to Carter Road. So as
Correct.
long as
Correct.
they can cover from both of those sides 300 feet, they generally would be okay. So that area, that one end of the building, obviously we don't have emergency vehicles be able to circulate all the way back to Carter Road, but typically with as long as they're not having to go more than 300 feet, they'd be okay. But certainly they're going to be very involved in the review process.
Yeah, I was wondering if you have a way to get back in that part of the building in the back. So that's something to consider.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
I don't really have any other comment.
Oh, just one more thing real quick. Do you remember you had that stream from the stormwater management pond on the other side? Can't see it on this view. I'd just like to know where that is.
In this view?
Well, I mean, do we have another view like the site
Yes.
plan that shows kind of like where it's going, where the storm drain will be? Or I'm assuming it's going to be
Yeah, so
like over.
yeah, that stream, that little swale stream channel is, can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Yep, so it's about right there.
Okay.
So.
I knew it was getting close to the building. I just kind of wanted to be sure. And I'm assuming that's just going to be one conduit going all the way underneath.
Right, we're gonna pick up that drainage as it comes out the other side on our side of Carter Road, and we would, yes, we're gonna pass that through and tie back into the state highway system and let it do what it's always done. Yep.
Okay, any other comments from the panel? All right, this is great. Does anybody have any motions they would like to raise?
I'll raise a motion that the site circulation look at further developing in spirit of the transportation district support, including how can we connect over to the MARC station?
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
And I'll make another motion, the corridor road, to look at how that can get some relief. The building can give some relief from the corridor road, given the height of the structure. The architectural site element, just look at how they can address that.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. I think we're done with this one. So thank you guys. Appreciate your presentation. And at this point, we'll move forward to the second presentation. I think this is you as well, Rob, right?
Yes, thank you
so
for the
Thank you,
suggestion.
guys.
Thanks, Chip.
Rob.
And
Thank you.
so we'll roll into the second presentation, which is a re-presentation of the Paddock Point project that we saw a matter of weeks ago.
Yep. All right.
So Rob, if you can go introductions again with your team for this project, that'd be good. I see a couple of numbers here.
Yeah, so let me introduce everyone. I'm not I think it'll predominantly be myself presenting and Bobby Thompson from Beazer. Also on this, also on the call is Andrew Girth, who's with the Stronach Group, project architect, or corporate architect, I should say. Alex Serper with Stronach Group, and I think that's it. So we, Bobby Thompson, Andrew, Alex, Bobby Thompson with Beazer Homes. So I think that's it. And I'm going to not bore everyone with the entire presentation. I'd like to just, if the intent is to kind of hit the highlights of the proposed changes, and then obviously get your feedback. So I'm gonna bring up the entire presentation and probably expedite a little bit.
And as you do that, Rob, I believe everybody from the panel was present, right, at the last one. Maybe Fred wasn't. Is there anything that do you have any exception, Fred, with just jumping into the updates?
I mean, I could.
Yeah, I'm fine with doing that, Ethan.
Great.
Are you able to see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Hopefully this goes smooth. All right, so just real quick, Fred has probably seen this site so many times anyway, but same site. The outlined areas were the areas that we're proposing to come in with the new development schemes. Existing Paddock Point as currently approved. On the bottom of this view, the south side adjacent to the railroad is phase 2, phase 4 office building. That is currently what is approved. Between American Faro and Laurel Park Drive, there's a long narrow strip, which is technically part of the phase 4 building, or phase 4 development that's also being redeveloped. So again, in the dashed areas, the areas being redeveloped, proposed new development scheme. Fred, the community commons that was always in this project is unaffected, stays in this project. Omaha Spur, all that stays exactly as you guys originally saw it, approved it.
Great.
All stays the same. So here we are back, very similar to what we originally proposed. We tried to make some major changes that we think really enhances the project and solves some of the problems. And we tried to listen and respond to what we heard. The units that were north of the circle were in a very strange angle, configured odd. We tried to probably force something that shouldn't have been forced. And then we ended up with that commercial space adjacent to Route 1 northbound. I think as we heard on some of the suggestions was, would we consider a pocket park or another amenity out there? And we did. So the commercial space is now gone. That is now going to be a pocket park to serve both the community and the public. There'll be connections both internally and externally. There'll be seating and areas to reflect in there, again, to be used by both. That allowed us to straighten out those townhouses. They are now facing Laurel Park Boulevard as they approach from Route 1. and they square up and set that edge is now as soon as you come in. The internal road was changed slightly actually to relocate a unit, but that really benefited us as well because we were able to move the tot lot area out from being in front of a bunch of the units that was a concern to now it's out. And we'll get into more detail, but it's still in front of a unit or two, but not as tight and not as compact and as confined as what it was. There was also a suggestion, and we'll show it a little bit more detail, that I think there was a realization that American Faro Lane really can't go through because of the type of road it is, and we didn't want that to become the thoroughfare. And I think there was a realization that was the original plan and should be maintained. But we did hear a good suggestion about setting up a wall, a landscape wall, to kind of show that is the end of American Faro Lane, and it would also kind of announce this other community, and it provides a good gateway for the sidewalk coming in from American Faro then into this new part of the community. Again, just some of the old. These are the old areas, colored rendering of what I just described. So the units, the commercial gone, the pocket park is been incorporated. The units are rotated to Laurel Park Boulevard as it's coming inbound from northbound Route 1. The wall on the side of the project where American Faro Lane terminates in the Seattle Slough. We have the tot lot now not as buried in between units and such, and it's more out there in a more gracious area. You could see we've realigned the road to somewhat accommodate that, and then we have our dog park slash rest area, relief area up there, Plan North, shown there in the brown. I think we described last time that there is a major dog park, which would be east in this view, that was part of phase 1 that is constructed, that has all kinds of amenities for dogs in that space. And the community commons, we think, is just a really important part of this whole project, and that is all retained, maintained, and will be constructed. Kind of zeroing in on the two scenarios. So on the left, you'll see what we presented last visit, and then on the right are the changes for this visit. We also looked at doing making some other changes, but it just wasn't working out well. So we thought this was probably the best version of what we were working with. But this is kind of the left was the last visit, the right is the current visit. Just basically the same view. We also spoke about the rear elevations of these units at front Laurel Park back to American Faro, and the back rears of these are facing the fronts of the units from that part of phase 1. Bobby will speak to that, and we have some imagery that you had requested that I'll show you here momentarily. This side of the project really stayed the way we originally presented. There was a comment whether we could move the units there on the east side closer to the community commons, closer or abutting that community commons. We looked at that. We actually met with planning and zoning director, and we felt that this was probably the best scenario there. again, Bobby will speak to the architecture here. I think what I'll do is this is all exactly the same as what you looked at before. So I'm going to get to a point here and turn it over to Bobby on the right here. And Bobby, if you could speak a little bit to the.
Absolutely, and thank you all for providing us the time to review this and an opportunity to address some of the concerns from our previous meeting. As you can see here, and Rob and his team did a great job of this length of view. You can truly see the placemaking on this corridor, that it matches the aesthetic on the other building, where we have the heavied up masonry coming up, and you have the black decks, which with the balusters that obscure the decks themselves. It's really what we described earlier on in the last meeting, but didn't really have the visual to showcase it that well.
Just another view of the same. Again, this is what was presented previous meetings as far as the community commons. No changes to what we anticipate. This was some imagery that was presented back then. Pretty much unchanged. Precedents, various materials, plantings. I think we talked about the landscaping, didn't seem to be an issue from the last meeting. So those are the changes. I think there are hopefully some improvements that you're looking for, and between the changes in the site planning and the modifications to the layout, in addition to seeing the imagery for the rears of those units facing the fronts of the units there in American Pharoah. We hope that gives you a better vision of what we're anticipating. So we're happy to discuss and answer any questions.
Great. Well, thank you for this. And Nick, if you could run through the county report, and then we'll follow up with discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Mr. Vogel, explained, this is essentially it's a revision to the plans that were seen at the August 28th meeting of this year, so last month. The design proposal just is a quick overview, and especially for the attendees and stuff listening. The initial proposal for the site included two sizable apartment buildings, especially one south of Laurel Park Boulevard, and then a smaller combined, apartment and garage building in between Laurel Park Boulevard and American Pharoah Way. At the last meeting, it was explained sort of that that design proposal wasn't exactly working out, and so we were presented with the 2/2 stacked townhome design, that was seen at that meeting. The design advisory panel, had made a lot of comments and discussion on that proposed design. There were a lot of concerns, sort of mainly of street layout, what those street treatments were going to be. At the time, the architectural designs had not been refined on the rear side up to that point. So the applicant was going to look into and provide an example of what the rears of those homes would look like, so a better sense of what the streetscape and layout would be, especially along American Pharoah Lane and the alleys, on which a lot of these buildings, will have vehicular access and will face each other. So DAP also, had concerns over the amenity space areas, especially in the orientation of those units north of Laurel Park Boulevard, on the northwestern corner. Its relationship, their relationship to themselves, because as Mr. Vogel explained, everything was really sort of compact and tight. And then the commercial component that along at the intersection of Laurel Park Boulevard and North 2nd Street, provided its own design difficulties with relation to the neighboring residential units. Excuse me one second. Architecturally, the designs of the townhomes are very similar. They're exactly as they were proposed at the previous meeting. You do have the rear elevations now, so we do have a much better idea of what those essentially what that rear facade, which would be presenting, especially along American Pharoah Lane, which I know is a major point of concern. We know what that facade would look like. So that all being said, any recommendations that the panel can make in terms of the streetscapes in the proposed housing. I know Mr. Vogel had explained traffic concerns in terms of layout, but and then the proposed treatments for that. Maybe any recommendations on maybe enhancements on how maybe that could work better. Different ideas of maybe how some of these terminating points could function, especially along like Seattle Slough Lane and American Pharoah. I know, like I said, that was a major point of contention, was that through traffic and maintaining that grid orientation that the initial design retained. But road and sidewalk circulation and network, landscaping and street treatments, when it comes to landscaping, any recommendations there would be greatly appreciated. Any recommendations or thoughts on the rear elevations that we now have seen? Will they work, in providing that, good street front element and presentation that we hope to achieve, especially along some of the higher classification streetscapes. And then any recommendations on the open space and amenity areas? We do have a new upfront park, entrance sort of presenting feature as you come into the development now. And then given the refinements to design, a lot of these open and amenity areas we have a little more space to work with, now in terms of spacing with the housing and those relationships. So any comments and recommendations the panel could provide for the update would be greatly appreciated.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. I'll open it up again. Any panel members care to lead off with comments, questions? Fred, go for it.
I have a question. Rob, you mentioned the tot lot. I'm not sure or clear. Where is that?
So that is, if you could see my cursor?
Yeah. Okay. I was hoping it wasn't somewhere else. Okay. Good. And then the other question I have is, and I know it sounds like maybe y'all talked about this last time and I wasn't there, the connection at the end of American Pharoah and Seattle Slough. What is that? Is that just a landscape wall, or it looks like a wall?
Yeah. So there's a walkway, a sidewalk here. And so what we want to do, there was a suggestion from the panel last meeting. I think, there was a discussion why that doesn't go through, and we kind of explained why that we don't want that going through. It would be a runway. It's a straight run. So we want it to be disjointed and force people to really use Laurel Park Boulevard. So it was suggested that so folks that are driving on American Pharoah, there's a realization that doesn't go through. And so the idea was to put a landscape wall parallel to Seattle Slough. So we have a little piece of a wall or pillars on the one side of that walk, and then a bit more of a wall on the other side of the walk, heading planned south, to kind of as noticed basically that American Pharoah is not going through, and actually provides, I thought, another benefit of that wall was actually provided some additional privacy to this alley on the proposed section. So yeah, that is what's in this area, Fred.
Okay, I'm just struggling with that, and the fact that now you've created a little security issue with that little end of a street there that goes nowhere for people to park, and then I don't have a better answer or solution. And I understand the group may have suggested doing this or something like this here. So I just wanted to question it. And then Seattle Slough at the top of the page does connect over, is that correct?
Yeah, so that's obviously a more circuitous route, right? So you'd have to go
Yeah.
up and around and back and through. It's really not a comfortable, it's not going to be expeditious, put it that way, to go that way.
So at the end of American Pharoah and Seattle Slough, there's a wall, and there's no other way to handle, or can you have a connection between the two properties that would not, allow for a drag racing strip across there, which I totally get it. I'm just not convinced of the solution.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, to reduce the, it could be pillars. It could be as simple as just, a significant pillar on either side of that walkway or maybe
Well, that's what I was going to say. Can it be transparent so it's not and I'm not
I think
seeing
wall
a
is
visual,
kind of
so
throwing us a little bit. Is it a wall? Is
Yes.
it like a seating wall height? Is it?
yeah,
a full
exactly,
height
Kelly.
wall?
What is the wall?
Yeah.
I would
it could
anticipate.
be concrete bollards and really done very nicely, but I have a perception of a wall in my brain that's kind of throwing me off.
Yeah, I would, in my mind, it would be like whether it's a stone or a cultured stone sitting wall with some landscaping.
Okay.
But if that seems too if you think that's too significant, we could just go with two concrete columns, pillars, bollards.
Well, I mean,
There's-
it might be
there's some-
fine. But low scale, right? Not like 6 or 8 feet, but rather 3-4 feet or so.
Like a
There's
2 foot-
something, yeah, I was going to say there's something really compelling to me about the street that carries through. And I'm not advocating for this to be a vehicular street that carries through, but could you do, a hardscape plaza? So you think about going for a walk in the evening or kids riding bikes that they could pass through. And it's more of this urban pattern that exists in this neighborhood, but doesn't address the vehicles passing through. We get that issue and the traffic concerns.
Yeah, no, we could, I think that's a good suggestion. So if we did, right, we could do a connection that has some stone bollards, right? That it's not, obviously can't be used for vehicles, but yeah, pedestrians could walk right through. Yeah.
Even like a small little gathering, just another little pocket park kind of thing there that, you can meet with your neighbors. I know it's a really tight, I think you need that extension past that last townhouse for a turnaround or.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's some way to kind of integrate something with that sidewalk area and that green space area right above that road that is
Yeah.
a hardscape park.
Yeah, I think
Could be brick pavers or something, so it's not just a street.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was the extent of my questions. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
I'll go next. I do like the change from the commercial to that pocket or to that other amenity space, and that I didn't feel like that commercial was connecting to the community so much. I still feel like this is a little disconnected. Is there a pedestrian path from that area into this new development? It's a little hard to read on the scale here.
Yeah, let me, so, all right, so there, if you're seeing my cursor, that's
Mhm.
that's a old state highway right of way that was never utilized, but it's still intact and still owned by State Highway. They were in the process, State Highway way back when, of acquiring more right of way. If you see, there's a little bit of white right there where my cursor is.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, there's a little, that little piece is also owned by State Highway. So if we can work with State Highway, I think the idea in my mind would be that we pull a walkway right through there into this part of the community. What you're not seeing is on the outside of this road, there will be a sidewalk, and that would tie right into the sidewalk system. So, yeah, if we can work with State Highway, I think there's a way to pull something through here. Is that what you had in
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah, I think that would help connect it back in because now it's still kind of this odd little, fingertip out this edge that if we can tie that back into the community a little bit more, that would be great.
Yeah.
I don't know if, again, I see the driveway. I do like that orientation of these townhomes on Laurel Park Boulevard a lot better than the last time.
I agree.
I think that really does reinforce that, entrance that we were talking about. It does make the driveways a little long, but that'll be the kid who has the good basketball net and everyone wants to hang out with. So I think that works out really nicely, and I like that the top lot does have more relief from the townhomes that were adjacent to it. It's a shame we couldn't get that lower part down by the commons to connect that group of townhomes closer to the commons, but I understand where that came from. Is there a way though that pedestrian path that's been included along that south end of the site to get a little more of a direct connection over to the MARC station or the train station that's there?
Yeah, so right now, this sidewalk would come out here to Omaha Spur, and then they'd have to, there is a sidewalk here.
Mm-hmm.
There's two underpasses, if you're familiar with this old
Mm-hmm.
Laurel Park. There's one here and there's one here. So that would be the current connection. We could do that connection very directly. We'd have to look at if that's something that's helpful or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another sidewalk here to the underpass as well.
Is there any bike parking or storage in that area? I'm just thinking if you're over up in this new development and you want to ride your bike to get over to the MARC, or if you're coming from another part of the area, is there any bike storage that's been considered, again, to kind of encourage that non-vehicular transportation?
Look, that's a good suggestion, and we could include, this was, not technically part of this submission, this area, but we could look at, I think that's something we could easily accommodate some bike racks up, probably right off of this pathway in this area.
And then that could also be used to get to the commons as well, just as another support element there.
Yeah.
You have some planned in there, but just.
Yeah, I would also say adding some back racks over where you're putting that park in the very front wouldn't be a bad idea as well. Also, I think your original Paddock Point sign is right there.
Yes.
Do you have any plans on doing anything with that? Or is another sign going to go up? What's the thought process there?
No, I think that sign would stay. I think it's in a good position, and a lot of this landscaping is already in place. So I think we try.
So you won't have to need to bother it.
I'm sorry?
So you won't need to remove it and place it somewhere else?
No, I think it will stay in place.
I have a couple comments. This is nothing really major, but I really appreciate the way you guys have looked at this. I think it shows, dramatic improvements for even the simple little moves that you made. I appreciate the architecture that you guys are doing front and back. It's really helpful to see, and you're definitely spending some effort to make the weird front to back scenario actually the best that it can be to make this work. So that's appreciative.
Could you flip to that slide real quick, by the way? I know you flipped through the flat elevations pretty quickly.
If we could stay
Oh,
on
sorry.
the slide real quick, I just want to touch on that pocket park in the front.
Okay.
I like the notion of a park here. Personally, I don't see any reason to program this park. This could just be green space, right? You create an elegant wooded entry to this neighborhood. It's so detached. This isn't a neighborhood where people are going to walk to this park from anywhere but a couple row homes here. You have really great public space in here. You could just do some nice big mature trees and your sign and create this very elegant entry to Paddock Point. That's my opinion. I don't think that's a real design guideline thing, but I don't think there's any necessity to over program it. I like obviously like the row homes that front Laurel Park as you come in. The long driveways, I just, immediately go to the amount of paving that's there. And I wonder if you just continued to fold that street a little bit more to get closer to those row homes and give that the found space that you did by this reconfigurement for the tot lot to give it a little more space to breathe by those parking. And thereby reduce some of the impervious surface. Might be a very nice subtle move. So both just two kind of observations that I had. Other than that, I'm on board with what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a look at those flat elevations real quick, if you don't mind. Just, I know the rendering was great. I am an architect. I like looking at the flat stuff sometimes too.
That one or the?
Yeah, that's a great shot there. And I think you guys responded to our comments very well. I think this reads pretty handsomely. So I just wanted to get a better look at those real quick. But I think that'll face the neighbors respectfully. And then can you go to the next one? That's the side. Yeah, so I think once that's kind of on those edges that don't have as much landscaping, that'll be a nice little turn there. Okay. I think
Beazer Homes did a really nice job. Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments?
Nope.
All right. Does anybody feel the need to bring any motions up?
I'll make a motion to look at that American Pharoah kind of park area that we just discussed at Seattle Slough.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate the effort you put into this.
No, thank you. Yeah, thanks for seeing us on short notice. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the panel's time.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes this meeting. Anthony, Nick, are there any other agenda items we need to touch on?
There are no agenda items necessarily. We are, just so you're aware, the Department of Planning and Zoning is currently kicking off the update to our landscape manual. So we just started with focus groups this week where we met with some internal agency reviewers. We met with engineers and developers just yesterday. And then next week is our public meeting where we're inviting anyone who's sort of interested in providing comment on the current landscape manual. So I throw that out there. It's the technical manual that we use when plans come through subdivision and site development review. It will be presented to planning board and then the council ultimately adopts it via resolution. So I throw it out there in case folks are interested. You're welcome to join us. If the panel itself wants to take a look at it, we're happy to either send it around individual, like to the group, or we can sort of review it at a high level at one of these meetings. If you're not that interested, that's also fine. I just thought I'd throw it out there and let you know that that's something that we're working on. The current landscape manual was written in 1998. And so has not been updated in any meaningful way since. So we brought on a consultant to help us with the rewrite, and they're hoping to bring some regional best practices and knowledge and new conflict resolution pieces to the manual that we currently have. It's very technical in nature, of course, but for those of you who have worked in Howard before, you might know a little bit about it. But that's what we're working on. It's a big project. So
I didn't realize it was that old.
Yeah, it was updated. There was an update in 2010 that included some new street trees, but that's pretty much been the update.
Wow.
So, yep, we're gonna work on a lot of pieces.
I think it'd be nice to get like just an overview of it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, happy to. Yeah, as we're in focus groups now. As we start drafting and get some major comments, and if we find that we have something that's sort of maybe challenging or something we're getting conflicting comments on, if you're open to it, we'd love to give you an overview and maybe even pick your brain on some specific issue items that might be coming up. If you're up for it, we'd love the input.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Great. That's all we have otherwise, right, Nick?
Nothing scheduled as of yet, but I'll keep everybody apprised if we get a new project in.
Great.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Sounds
See you guys
great.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.